So, welcome to Game Life Balance US, a bi-weekly video game podcast where every 2 weeks, John Martin and I talk about balancing games in life. This is, of course, our, we haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks, right? Been a couple of weeks.
So for me, you took it upon yourself for our podcast to post a couple episodes over the past couple of years?
Several months.
Several months. I'm sorry. Time has gone by very quickly. Past several months, you have posted some podcasts, which I very much appreciate. This is my first time back, and it's probably been like 6 months. So I don't really know what I'm doing.
Do you know the real date?
I really don't. I really don't know the last time that I was on a podcast. I do know that. So I had basically like a podcasting setup downstairs in my basement that is no longer there. We have literally like torn that apart. And so that's not even available in the basement. So it moved back upstairs to the office, which is that's a significant change in the house since the last time I podcast. I had to dig out my podcasting equipment out of a drawer. So that means it's been a while. So yeah, I don't actually know the date. I think I've had 3 other kids since the last time we podcast.
3 other, that's so many. Today is July 13th, 2019. This is the first podcast we've done in 2019 together.
Okay, so we have to make up for lost time is what you're saying. So does that mean we're going to be doing a podcast every day for the next 6 months?
12 months.
I can commit to that.
Can you?
I can commit to that.
What happened? Let's fill in the listener on why we haven't done an episode in 8 months.
Sure. I'll be honest.
7? Hold on. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Okay, 7 months. 7 months.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we like to, the podcast is called Game Life Balance. We like to talk about trying to balance our real lives with also having other things going on and trying to play video games at the same time. When you have kids, especially like infants, to like the outside world, it's like, oh, it's so busy. I'm sure it's crazy busy with kids. But to be perfectly honest, like you kind of have to be really regimented with children in almost all circumstances. So like, I've got 2 kids. I now have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. If you don't know, by the way, I'm Jonathan. Did you introduce me? You didn't.
You didn't need introduction.
There's no introduction. There. Perfect. Okay. So that's right. And I don't have a last name either, just like Cher. I just go by Jonathan.
Martin.
So yeah,
you go by Jonathan.
I go by Jonathan Martin, all one word, just like Cher. Her actual name is Cher, right? But she just, anyway, you actually have more free time sometimes than I think the outside world, especially people without kids, understand, because I've got 2 kids, Henry and Max. Henry's 1, Max is 5, and Henry's bedtime is pretty strictly 6:30. Generally, he's in bed somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30, and Max's bedtime, or 6:30 and 7, and Max's bedtime is pretty strictly 7:30, and he's generally in bed sometime between 7:30 and 8. And then like there's time after that. That's just, it's not like I'm going anywhere after 8 o'clock because I've got children in bed. So it's actually like most nights are free. And I've been playing a lot of video games with that time because Henry's 1, right? Now he's not going to be ready to stay home by himself for at least another year. So
to give him a little credit, maybe 9 months.
So I've actually had more time to like play video games and do stuff like this. What I think happened is I think you got crazy busy with your award-winning podcast. So I'm kind of plugging your award-winning podcast here at the top of the show. I think you just got really busy.
See, and I thought you just got really busy. I think that's the thing that happens with people and
adults that aren't living like, I don't know, next door to each other.
Well, there's because I mean, look, I complain a lot about how busy or overly scheduled, I guess I am sometimes. And you probably look at that and you're like, well, I'm not going to push through the podcast because like I'm kind of busy too.
Considering that you tell me sometimes that you've worked like 45 hours by Wednesday, it's like there probably wasn't a lot of time over the course of that week, right?
This week I only worked 32 hours at the end of Wednesday, which was too much. It was too many hours. Yeah, no, I mean, and it's been tough. Even for this podcast, believe it or not, I actually interviewed a professor from Cornell University about music and video games like a month ago, literally,
Sure.
for this show, because I had a contact there, and I got a guest pitch, and I was like, it actually makes the most sense for my video game podcast. Yeah, have you heard that yet? Because no one has, because I haven't
Was your
had
contact Andy Bernard at
it.
Cornell? Did he sing a cappella?
How did
It's
you
an
know that?
it's an Office joke. You wouldn't get it because you don't
No,
watch
it's
The
a
Office.
The Office joke.
It's a The Office joke. You wouldn't get it.
I would
But
get it. I got it.
well, good for you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. So, but like, yeah, to my point, that, like, when I'm editing and recording and scripting podcasts, all day, every day, leaves little time to script and record and
Record
edit more.
other podcasts. Sure.
Yeah. So, but you'll see that soon. And
You
by
know
the way,
the old saying. Do what you love, and you'll work every day of your life and have existential dread that you may be falling out of love with the thing that you love. Right? That's the old saying.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate what you do.
Thanks. Was that
And
that
your existential dread. I appreciate that as well.
I gotta have a little existential dread. But it's not but like I'm not one of those millennials that like brags about how busy they are. Like I don't think it's cool. Like I actually hate being too like occupied with things for the most part. I mean, it's nice to have an active social calendar, which I totally do. But yeah, no, it's not like, oh man, I've worked 50 hours, look how cool I am. Like I kind of loathe that. And I'm hoping to remedy that soon by achieving a better work-life balance, which then in turn will turn into a game-life balance. Because I've been struck by the fact that every time we're texting with our friends, you're just like, oh, I just finished like some other new game, and I'm just like, how John literally has 2 kids, and one is like a very baby baby.
It's true.
Thing.
So
Tiny.
we've podcasted a lot in the past, but it's been a long time since you've seen us. If this is your first time coming to us, welcome. Couple things about the way I run my schedule in my life. I actually wake up at 4:00 in the morning, which I have talked about plenty of times, but generally on weekdays, Monday through Friday, I'm up at 4. Weekends, I'm up at 6 because that's when my kids get up. But when I get up at 4, I do that intentionally so that I have kind of quiet time to myself. Most of the time that is used playing video games, right? Like that's kind of like my time to myself to play video games. Then I'll exercise in the morning before my kids get up. After they go to bed is kind of free for all. Either sometimes, my wife and I'll like watch a show or something together. If she's not interested in doing that, or if she's got to work, generally I'll play video games after house stuff is done, right? And so like that's where my time is coming from, to play video games.
When you go to bed?
10.
Okay.
I have a pretty, like I said, I have a pretty strict schedule in terms of how I run my life.
Because your kids get up at 4? Is that why?
No. My kids get up at 6. I get up at 4 so that I can play, all of these games that I keep telling you about.
You have so much discipline in terms of having fun. It's great.
Otherwise I would never have fun, right? I have to schedule fun into my life. How fun does that sound?
That is fair. All right. Well, with the intros and reintroductions out of the way, I will say that this episode of Game Life Balance US is going to be a format called Stream of Nonsense. It is a type of episode I came up with by myself that I did not borrow from another show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before. That's incredible.
Yeah. Every 60th episode of the Game Life Balance US podcast is a Stream of Nonsense episode. So this is episode 60.
That's incredible. That's, what, we finally got there for our first one.
Yeah. No, it's
we talked about this from the inception of the show and said, hey, in 3 years we're going to have our first Stream of Nonsense episode.
Right. Yeah. So Stream of Nonsense is where we kind of break our format. In our last episode, actually it wasn't even our last episode because we promoted it before. In our episode on either August 15th or November 4th. My God. When is the last time we did a Super Nintendo game? I'm looking at our.
Oh yeah, we were doing that, weren't we? We did that for a while. This is going very well.
All right. So for a while, so John and I both got an SNES Classic Mini,
It was kind of
and
awesome too.
it was great. And then like late 2017, early 18, we were like, okay, every episode we'll review a game. The last
Hmm.
time we did that was April 17th, 2018.
So
So,
we're a little behind. We're a little behind.
and we teased that we were going to review Super Punch Out next.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So let's get to it.
so
Cody, how is Super Punch Out?
did you ever beat it?
I never even started it. Let's be honest. I never even got there. But I will say the SNES Classic is currently hooked up on the 3-season porch. I could play it whenever I wanted.
Oh
So
man.
we're there. We're good. I'm ready. I'm ready. In 6 months, when we record our next podcast, we will talk about Super Punch Out.
Neither of us were excited about that game, and I
Yeah.
think given well, for you it sounds like you still have time to play every game ever. For me, like any rare second I get to actually sit down and play video games, I don't want to spend playing Super Punch Out.
Yeah, speaking of, let's get right into it then. I want to talk about what you've been playing because it's the same as what we've talked about. Maybe, I don't know. It probably was last episode of this show. Um, could have been the last 6 episodes of the show we did together. But a new expansion for Final Fantasy 14 came
Mhm.
out like a week ago. A week and a half ago, something like that.
Oh my God, it is. Well, I had early access, so I think I got it June 30th or something. So it's been about 2 weeks for me.
About 2 weeks. So a new expansion just came out for Final Fantasy XIV called Shadowbringers. I know a little bit about it because I've been reading about it online, but certainly not what you will know about it as somebody with firsthand experience. So let's shelf the conversation about Punch Out because we're probably not going to be talking about the SNES Classic for a while. Let's talk about Final Fantasy XIV. What's new? How is it?
Yeah, I'm into that. And I don't want to turn off people right away, right now, that don't play massively multiplayer online RPGs, because I
Mhm.
realize MMOs are not for everybody. And Final Fantasy isn't for everybody, which
Anybody? No, no, no. You said it right the first time. Final Fantasy is not for anybody.
Final Fantasy is not for certain Australians that will remain unnamed, which I find quite upsetting. But we'll leave their nonsense out of this. Let's
Mhm.
just say that. So Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers. So if you've ever listened to this podcast before, you know that I started my MMO journey. It'll be 3 years next month, I think, based on my subscription renewal and length of subscription. So
And am I right that in those 3 years you have played through all of the expansion, the stories of the expansions up to this point?
yeah. When
Okay.
Shadowbringers came out, this was so Heaven's Ward was the first expansion, and they were developing the second expansion. I think the second expansion might have come out before I even finished the Heaven's Ward content. Then the second expansion came out, Stormblood, and it was fine. It wasn't as I didn't think it was quite as good as Heaven's Ward, but it was fine. So I played that, and
Mhm.
then that happened, and then I was all ready for Shadowbringers, and then it came out a couple weeks ago, and it's very good so far. So it's very different than other expansions, and it's very Final Fantasy. So if you do like Final Fantasy, what's interesting is, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm about 2/3 of the way through,
Okay.
but maybe half to 2/3 of the way through. What I've heard everywhere is that it's kind of rewriting the rules of MMOs a little bit, and it feels really the story so far has felt like just a Final Fantasy game. And it
Yeah. Now
always has, but
you
like
said that this is your first adventure into MMOs, and I have a little more experience than you do with them. And just for slight reference, for anybody that's tried MMOs before, the thing that makes Final Fantasy XIV different is that it really puts you as the character at the forefront of the story, and everything in the story happens around you. Whereas generally in other MMOs, stuff happens that they have written with other NPCs, and you are kind of witness to the story that they have written. But in Final Fantasy XIV, you are really the driver of the story. You are the one that is affecting the change in the world, right? And the story centers all completely on you. And it's a different way to write a story in an MMO that kind of is probably more engaging in terms of the story.
yeah, and what I have realized recently is I think Final Fantasy 14 is a science fiction game set in a fantasy setting, not just a straight fantasy game. And I think that for a couple reasons. First of all, there's this kind of magic in the world, the ether, that Aether, that plays a really vital role in a lot of different ways, but they explain how it works pretty thoroughly. It follows a very precise scientific logic. You learn about different principles of ether as you go through the game, and it kind of expands on that. It's not like Harry Potter where it's like, okay, I say Wingardium Leviosa, and then there's like a spell. Like, okay, why does that happen? Oh, because it's magic.
It's
Cool.
because you swished and flicked.
Right. Exactly. So like it really gets into ether, and then it's like, oh well, here's a component, and here's an object with ethereal properties, and let's infuse ether into this, and then oh wait, but you can summon primals using this, but oh here's another way of summoning it. Oh, we didn't know that, so now we need to know about it. And it really explains it all. And there's another thing I read forever ago. You know a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, and I don't remember where I even heard this. Maybe in English class in high school, but I guess a thing that separates fantasy with science fiction is a lot of times science fiction shows some kind of growth in maybe like making the world better or in learning something new, whereas fantasy is more maybe like a quest or an epic, and maybe you get a grail or you defeat a villain or something, but by and large for the most part the world isn't really like fundamentally changed. Like at the end of Game of Thrones, Westeros is, who is in charge changes, but it's still like same technology, same kind of like world. Same with like even Lord of the Rings, like even with the Shire Reckoning and stuff. It's like, okay, they go off, they do the thing, and they come back, but like the world is kind of the same in a way. I don't know if I'm phrasing that right, but does that sound kind of familiar at all to you, or in any way true?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, great. All right. Well, anyway, this game just seems a little more science fiction to me based on some principles I learned at some point in time about fantasy, which may or may not be true. So that was vague, but here we are, and you're welcome.
So it seems to me like Final Fantasy, ever since really 7, we talk about Final Fantasy a lot on this show because it's a very important series to both of us, right? Ever since 7, there's been a marriage of magic and machine that has kind of existed, where generally corporations or large governments in the worlds that they build use magic and stuff with magical properties to build large machines, generally for some type of exploitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very common theme in most of these games that have going forward from 7. So, because like in 7, you had, Shinra using materia to make, basically they created Midgar, this giant dystopian city.
Right.
8 has gardens that like fly, these giant cities that fly around. 9 kind of is its own thing. It does have some like steampunk elements, but and generally you can point to things throughout all of those games from 7 forward. So they've really been using these themes for a long time, of kind of these things with mystical properties that don't actually exist, and then creating these weird dystopian machines out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nothing ultra new to the series, and it's probably the most similar to Final Fantasy VII in their life stream in terms of kind of how the science of the magic and how that works. Or Final Fantasy XIII, Boon of Elza.
That's
let's try to hit puberty before I say that. Boon of Elza.
No, the voice crack worked. So the story has always been the thing for Fantasy XIV, right? That's always been the thing that everybody points to as awesome compared to a lot of other MMOs. How is it?
It's really good. It's really good. So I just texted my friend Brad last night about where I was in the story. He said, okay, now the story gets really, really good. He said at one point that Shadowbringers, this expansion, has the best story of any Final Fantasy game, full stop.
That's awesome.
It hasn't been, that, I wouldn't say that so far. Like, it's good. I'm immersed in it. And it's cool. And you almost, what's cool about this expansion is it's not just there's some new areas you unlock and go to. You really are pretty much teleported to like a whole new realm, essentially. And that's why all these advertisements you're seeing everywhere, because they're going all out with their marketing campaign.
Yes, they are.
You will be the warrior of darkness. And you're the warrior of darkness because you're in a world where you want a warrior of darkness and not a warrior of light. Because up until now, you've been the warrior of light, and you've brought light and been for the power of light and all that stuff. But over here, it makes sense to be the warrior of darkness. And it's cool because since this is like almost a parallel world, essentially, to where the rest of the game takes place, you feel like you're in such a different place. Like if I teleport to an old town or an old locale to maybe do a quest or to do a little bit of leveling or do some random outstanding task that I do normally, like it feels weird to
Sure.
teleport it in Canada. Like I'm like, my character doesn't belong here anymore. Like
Yeah.
I know I'm over in this world of Shadowbringers. Like that's where my character is supposed to be. Did they do that kind of thing in WoW before?
It's a really hard balance with an MMO because, the designers of the game have spent years of their lives, right, making all of this other content, old content. A new expansion comes out, and it's almost always set this way where there's a new hub and there's a bunch of new areas off of that hub. And generally it's for, the next higher level characters, and then characters never go and see the old stuff again.
Yeah,
So it's very common for this particular feeling to happen because they always just set up a new hub with new spokes off of that hub.
for
So,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty common.
The thing is though, there's so much to do in an MMO
Yeah.
that I'm still visiting old areas to catch up on stuff. So for a long time, I was only leveling a couple of characters, and because in this game you can choose any character class, level it up all the way to 80 as the max level. And before I was like, okay, I'm a black mage, like that's my thing. Then eventually I'm like, let's try a healer. Okay, all right, white mage, I'll get it somewhere. Okay, all right, we'll see. And then I'm like, all right, let's try a tank. I gotta try a tank, so I got a warrior. And then I kept hearing how fun samurai was. Everybody's like, samurai is like the most fun DPS class. You gotta try samurai. Samurai is a melee. Samurai is my main now,
Okay.
and I have been obsessed. It's so fun. It is so fast paced and fun, and your rotation is just like bang, 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 and there's like 3 different layers to it.
You're losing people with rotations and stuff like that, and that's fine. Here's my okay. So here's my 5 seconds on MMOs now. So I tried to get back into 14 again.
Yeah, tell me about that. I keep seeing you log on, and then you're not winning.
I haven't in a while now. So I tried to get back into it again, and I didn't remember anything about the game. So I started over again.
That's what I thought. I didn't see your character's name.
Which is what it's whatever. You can, but anyway, like I realized as I was playing the game that MMO combat to me has turned boring. So the thing I really like in MMOs are the dungeons and raids, things with groups, things that require more attention and maybe more mechanical precision. But the problem is that there's this shell of single player stuff around it that has this really interesting story that does definitely help drive me forward when I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot of risk in the single player portion of the game. And so I always felt like I was just kind of grinding through the single player stuff to make it to the multiplayer stuff that I found the most fun. And then there's this large gap of doing single player stuff again that is relatively boring to me in terms of its mechanical play to get to the next party thing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same way in World of Warcraft towards the end, and why I kind of fell off that game too is it's just there's no risk generally in the overworld stuff outside of dungeons when you're playing the games. There's just not.
Yeah. You're just like fighting mobs and stuff.
Yeah, and it's easy. Like you're not generally at risk of dying at all. So I got like a bunch of the way into the story, and I remembered, gosh, this story is really cool. Like they do a lot of really cool things with it. And I was playing the base story, which apparently everybody says is the worst part of the story. And I still enjoyed it, but I just couldn't get past that hump of it. It's just kind of boring to play outside of the dungeons.
Yeah, and it would be one thing if it was something you could beat in 30 or 40 hours.
Right.
Because we've all endured boring parts of games. Final Fantasy XIII, the first 20 or so hours, we've always complained about that, right?
Yeah.
Very linear, very little risk. You're still active, but let's be honest. The first 20 hours of 13 is not why I played it twice in the same year.
Right.
It was an awesome game. The problem is, and people have mentioned this on Reddit, and the community is very well aware, a very, very good, exceptional Final Fantasy game that is a spectacular MMO with a phenomenal story is essentially story gated behind a 100-hour story.
Yes.
And that's minimum 120, maybe 130 if you don't really know what you're doing.
Unless you pay extra money to skip content,
Yeah.
which is something that they allow you to do. And I appreciate that that option is there. I think it's a little crummy that it is gated behind extra money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I went out and bought the Shadowbringers expansion, now, I don't have any characters that are even through Heaven's Word, which is the first expansion, and they're gated to get to the Shadowbringers expansion. You'd have to go through Heaven's Word, the first expansion, and Stormblood, the second expansion, or pay an extra somewhere between it's like $20 and $40 to level up a character slash
Yeah. I think it was like
skips
25 or something to level to do that.
slash skip story content. The point is like if I'm going to buy that game at a retail price of $60, like to get all of the expansions that I don't have up to this point, they should give me one character class that automatically can start at that story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I hope they start doing that. And the other thing is about the combat that you mentioned, MMO combat being boring. The other complaint is for everybody. I encountered this when I tried to level a rogue to be a ninja and I got it to 30, but like until level 50, almost every class is barely tolerable.
It's like 3 buttons.
Yeah.
You have
at
3
best.
buttons that you're using to play the game, and that is just not that interesting. So I got bored again, and I stopped playing it. And when we get to kind of what I've been doing with video games, you'll I think understand why that I couldn't tolerate that. I just couldn't tolerate that.
Yeah, and I'm watching this YouTuber that is a WoW refugee.
Sure,
Love that
which there
term.
are plenty of that have started playing Final Fantasy XIV. A lot of people are jumping ship right now.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a WoW refugee that does a YouTube channel. He talks a lot about Final Fantasy XIV and what he loves about it, and he brings up these criticism all the time. And he's like, what's interesting is you can see the game development evolve as you play the game. So even if the first 100 things, you're like, okay, well, this is kind of clunky, and then you get to the first expansion, you're like, oh, this is really cool. This has been streamlined. Then you get to Stormblood, you're like, oh, this is cool. This is streamlined. And now you're in Shadowbringers, and you're like, wow, this is like so great. But no matter how long you've been playing the game or what you want to do right now, when you pick up Shadowbringers, you're starting wherever you left off. And for you, that's Realm Reborn, the original. And for some people, it's Heaven's Ward. And I'll be honest, I thought Heaven's Ward was a little long. I thought the story was really phenomenal and so excellent and on par with any mainstream Final Fantasy game, but like easily. Like I would probably compare it to Final Fantasy 9. I would say it's better than 8 and probably in around the same realm as 9. It's just really compelling and good. So even then still it's like, I mean, I was at several hundred hours before I got to Shadowbringers, and I didn't even know what I was doing, like I look back and I'm like, okay, how many hours did I spend crafting with no experience bonuses, or like trying out this class, or doing this weird side quest thing that I know I didn't have to do? And like you don't really know how to min-max stuff. You don't know how to like optimize your time investment in that game until you really understand all the systems. And like I have about 1,000 hours of gameplay and I'm still learning things about the game.
Yeah.
So it's deep and dense. So anyway, yeah, I guess just to kind of wrap this up, like Shadowbringers is very good. It feels different than any other FF game. If you've not tried an MMO, I would give it a shot. I mean, if you have an extra like $20 to burn, like there are jump potions that they will give you that automatically clear all the main story content. And that includes Heaven's Word and now Stormblood. So you can literally pay, it's like 20 or $25 and you just like, boom, you're there in Shadowbringers. But as John said, it's next to like $15, I think, to just get one potion to blast your character up to a level 70 character, which is where you start at Shadowbringers. So, I mean, yeah, you are looking at like an extra 50 or $60 to just like zip in, and that on top of the expansion. So now you're paying like $100 basically to start playing Shadowbringers, and the subscription, like that's cost prohibitive. If you've got $100 to burn and you are obsessed with Final Fantasy and you want a great Final Fantasy story experience, because like me, you were let down with Final Fantasy 15 and you just have an itch you really need to scratch, and you just want a killer time with a great community, yeah, go for it. But I mean, how many of us have an extra $100 to just kind of blow on zipping ahead? It's unfortunate, and Square is always incrementally improving these things. I will tell you one other thing. Talking about game life balance, to bring this back to the subject of our show. when you have a limited amount of time to play games, you have a regimen, so you've kind of got a system. Me, I'm in more the realm of like, when I have a minute, I will play. Like, all right, cool. I just worked 40 hours. It's now midday Thursday. I'm going to take a break and play some games.
And you can also, you've got the opportunity to maybe not play games for like 4 days, but then be off and like sit down for a long, 6-hour gaming session with Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah. Like my plan today is ideally, hopefully, to play like at least 4 or 5 hours straight. Like,
Right.
boom, which is great. However, but the entire gaming experience completely relies on an external factor, and that is servers being up, servers working right, and internet being good.
Now, remember, he's referring obviously to just MMOs, not all video.
Yeah, I'm just talking MMOs.
Right.
So like you've played all these different games, and if one broke or Steam wasn't connecting or something, you have a different game you could play. I'm all in on Final Fantasy XIV. I don't play other games anymore. So like it was like around I think it was like the night before the Independence Day or something, like July 3rd. And I had like burned through, like a 40-hour week in 3 days or something. And I was like, okay, finally, here we go. I can play games for like 5 hours. And it's like, cool. Hey, we're starting maintenance in an hour. So servers will be down. So you can't play. So you can't do the thing you want to do.
Right. And if that's the only game you want to play, it's tough to then be like, I don't really want to get involved with another game because I'm not going to go back to it once the servers are back up. I remember those times from World of Warcraft. I had the exact same feelings.
Something to think about. I will tell you, I have one escape. Did you know the other game that I did actually play in the last 2 weeks?
Final Fantasy XIII 2.
Surprisingly, no. Sid Meier's Civilization 6 with the Rise and Fall expansion.
Really?
Yeah.
We talked a lot of Civ 5 over the course of this show. We've definitely talked about Civ 6 before, but it came out relatively recently, and a lot of playtime probably happened in like the gap where we didn't record. So I don't think we've talked as much about it.
Have you played it?
I have. I've played one game of it that I really actually enjoyed. I thought it was really cool. But I didn't really know what I was doing because the way that like you can manipulate your cities now, it's a lot more granular than previous Civilization games. Yeah. So like I kind of just let my cities evolve on their own, and I didn't really with the district stuff. And so I didn't really know what I was doing. I just like built districts as they came up.
Yeah, it's
but I certainly didn't optimize anything, basically. Yeah.
Well, a few days ago, I actually had a little bit of free time, and for logistical reasons I won't get into, I started playing a game of Civ 6 while I was finishing editing something, because it's turn-based, so you can kind of switch back and forth quickly. Sure. And I finished editing, and I shut my laptop, and I'm sitting there playing Civ 6, and I was like, all right, cool. Well, now I can quit Civ 6 and play Shadowbringers. An hour and a half later, I was still playing Civ 6, and I was actually like mad at myself. I'm like, I want to be playing Shadowbringers, but this is so fun. There are 2 expansions. There's Rise and Fall is the newest one, and then there's one other one that I didn't get. I highly recommend Rise and Fall. The other expansion has mixed reviews on Steam, but Rise and Fall was I think mostly positive or very positive.
Is Rise and Fall the climate change one, or is that the one that you didn't get? Okay, you got the climate change one.
Yeah. There's natural disasters, and a lot of coastal tiles now have like elevation or altitude, so they'll get flooded, and floods will be natural disasters. Volcanoes will go off, but they have rich soil around them. So there's really cool mechanics. But what I think the number one thing for me, and I've only played one game, so I've yet to see if this is a rule or the exception, but like barbarians kind of make sense now. So like before, when I would start a game of Civ 6, I could get 30 turns in, and there would be 4 barbarian tribes that just destroyed everything. And like your game is over. Like your game is over because of barbarians in 20 to 30 turns, no matter what you do. It's virtually like, even if I went military and I have all these archers and warriors, like it was absurd how bad the barbarians were, even on regular difficulties. Mm-hmm. This game, they seem to have done something so where they didn't start to propagate or really spread quickly. So I had established a couple cities and had a few military units, and was kind of chilling around the continent before I started to see them. And they seem to be a little further away, and they seem to be a little less aggressive. Again, I don't know if that's just dumb luck for the one game or if they tweaked some algorithms, but it automatically felt different the way they approached me. And that allowed me to kind of get a good start. And then after that, the game's been really, really fun. They add governors that you can add to your cities, or mayors. I guess it would be mayors, wouldn't it? I don't know what they are. Politicians that you can add as leaders to your cities. They have a couple different tile types. It's really, really fun. And there's a bunch of new civs. So I highly, highly recommend the Rise and Fall expansion. And the other thing is, like, a lot of people say that when a Civilization game first comes out, it's never finished. Like, it's not complete.
Yeah, they always expand it 3 times, right? 3 or 4 times before they are done with the game.
So if you were disappointed with 6 when it came out and you're like, I'm just going to keep playing 5, pick up Rise and Fall. I don't know about whether you should pick up both, but definitely pick up Rise and Fall. The Steam summer sale ended. I got it for $10 off, which was nice. I was going to wait longer because, a year after they're out, you can get them for like $10.
Right.
But I was like, no, totally worth it. So there was the one game that could pull me away from Final Fantasy. And it's nice to have a backup game. So if you are an MMO player, don't go all in on an online-only game. You've got to have some kind of offline backup or you'll drive yourself crazy. Also good for offline backup, books.
Sure. Way to plug books.
It's a thing you can read.
Not a book, just books.
I have a book right here. What's this? 3 books. They're under a keyboard. I'm not going to pick them up.
Okay.
What's this
There's
book?
books. There's books all over here. That's amazing.
Over here.
I've got bookshelves. We could talk about the books in my bookshelves. I've got books
read
too.
Books?
Yeah, I haven't in a while.
Do you read books?
I mean, I know how to read. I do read books. I haven't read a novel in a while, but I do read books.
Do you know how to read things that aren't books? Are they?
Like, you mean like documents? Sheets of paper? What are we talking about now?
Do you like documents? I love documents.
Like
I've been into essays lately.
Like what's written on like the side of a coffee cup? Like when
I was thinking the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, Nicolas Cage had to steal that in a movie that I watched.
Did he really?
He was really more of a treasure protector.
Yeah, I never saw those movies. I did see Ex Machina though, and it was good.
Yeah, that is a great movie. Like,
really good.
That director has made a couple of other kind of provocative films. I can't remember what they are, but he's kind of like making a name for himself in these kind of like weird, small indie sci-fi type movies.
The funniest thing regarding directors for me recently, there's a way to start a sentence. It was when we were browsing Netflix, and my wife realized that when you preview a Netflix movie, it doesn't tell you the director.
Oh, really?
It was really funny to watch how angry that made her, as like a movie fan.
That does seem a little odd, doesn't it?
That is outrageous. That is like unacceptable.
Yeah.
It doesn't say who directed it. My God, it only shows the actors.
Yeah, he also the other one that he directed that was pretty well regarded was Annihilation.
Mortal Kombat Annihilation?
That's right, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Oh, that wasn't as good as the original.
No, not Annihilation, that movie that came out last year based on that science fiction book with Natalie Portman in it. It's kind of a body horror. It's a very good movie. It's excellent.
Body horror.
Yeah.
Speaking of
also he's written video games.
What video games?
That's where he came from. He came from Devil May Cry. He wrote Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Another pretty well-regarded video game. So he's kind of been involved with a couple of things.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, I got to know what you've been playing because it's all the games.
So it'd take me way too long to like go through the list of the things I've played over the past 7 months or whatever. The long and short, I sold my PlayStation 4.
What?
So E3 happened since we last talked. And one of the things that happened in E3 was I always watch the press conferences. I love E3. I love keeping up to date with video game news. I get excited about it. I get excited about the industry. And one of the things that I saw was that Microsoft is doing this thing, and I've always been kind of interested in their Game Pass service.
Oh,
but
right.
Microsoft came out and they came out with a new program where they rolled their Game Pass and Xbox Live Gold into one subscription. for $15 a month that gets you both Game Pass and Xbox Live Gold. I'll talk to you about what each of those is in a minute. But up to this point, they had been separate. Game Pass has been slowly like evolving to be better, but it hadn't really been perfected until what I think really now they have hit their stride, and it is a really, really good value for what you pay to get it, for what you're paying for. So what they are, Xbox Live Gold is access to their online infrastructure that allows you to play games online. Honestly, Microsoft has the best system. It's even better than Steam. Being able to make parties and launch games that way has always been better. It's been a better user experience than any of the other systems. And so there's a reason why they charge a premium for that, right? Like there's a reason they can charge $10 a month for that, and Nintendo can charge $20 a year, because Nintendo's is garbage, right? Like their online service is generally considered pretty lacking.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, PlayStation has their own version of this. You can access their games online actually for free. Their user system is slightly less good. But if you pay their premium service, you get a couple of games for free a month. So anyway, I was watching these press conferences, and I hadn't really used my PlayStation for a while. I had only been using my PC. So my PlayStation had been collecting dust. Probably hadn't played a game on there in like 6 months. And I saw this Game Pass thing, and I've always been a little interested in it. So I did some research, and there's like 200 games that you get access to immediately when you pay the subscription fee. And as long as you are a subscriber to Game Pass and have the game downloaded, even if the game cycles out of Game Pass, because they're always adding and getting rid of games as they gain and lose licenses from publishers, even if you've got it downloaded, you can continue to play it. So I paid I was like, I'm gonna do it, because I'm not playing my PS4. There's no reason for me to have it. So I sold it on Craigslist, bought an Xbox One. They're crazy cheap right now because they already announced a new system, because they announced that they're working on a new system that they're probably going to show next year. And so nobody's buying Xbox Ones, right? So there's a value proposition there right now that's, I think I paid $200 for an Xbox One with 2 controllers, new.
What?
Yeah, because and 3 months of Game Pass Ultimate for free with it. So they're crazy cheap right now. And I got on there and I started downloading games. I downloaded like 25 games that I immediately had access to and started playing that. So the first game that I played through to completion, which would be, I think, the only thing I talk about today, was Hollow Knight, which is a Symphony of the Night-like game that was developed by this small Japanese studio. It was their first game. I think it's Team Rose or something like that. It was their first game, and it's just like it's a side scroller castle exploration game. And it basically asks the question, what if Dark Souls was a Symphony of the Night style game? And that is like a 2D platformer exploration game. And that is what the game is. And it is the best. For me, it was the best Symphony of the Night style game that I have ever played.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal.
So it's hard though, too, right? Dark Souls?
Hard. Yeah, very hard. Very hard. And it's very much like the bosses are the thing, right? Like that you get to the bosses, and that is generally the spot where you will get stuck until you become good enough to beat the boss and then continue. But it's the same formula that all of those games follow. You go through the world. You find a lot of places you can't access yet until you find powers after you defeat bosses to then let you access other areas of the world. Play through that game from start to finish. The aesthetic of that game is, I can see it not being for everybody, but it's all bugs. You're in this like kingdom of insects. You are this small little beetle looking dude. It's kind of cartoony in terms of its art style. Like colors are very vibrant, but it's also like basically the entire game is a palette of bluish green, because you're underground. So it's just a really like beautiful, kind of dark, mysterious looking game. It doesn't have a lot of there's not a lot of difference between the areas in terms of the way they look. So there's a little bit of like visual fatigue that I noticed over the course of playing that game. But the way the game controls, it's like the tightest controlling platformer I've ever played.
Wow.
It was awesome. So
Now,
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, back when I was traveling one time and I had my Switch and I asked for recommendation of what to download, and the two recos I got were Hollow Knight and Axiom Verge. I ended up downloading Axiom Verge. I've talked about that on this show before. For me,
and I love that game. That game is so good.
Oh my god, yeah, phenomenal Metroidvania game. In one of the texts, a couple of you said Hollow Knight's probably better, but that it doesn't really hit its stride until like 4 to 6 hours in. So it's funny, we just finished talking about like the time investment for a slow start. So is that still true?
It is. So part of the problem is that the game feels kind of slow when you first get in. But the very first power that you unlock is a dash. And the dash is both an air dash and a ground dash. And so once you get that, it really makes the movement feel better in the game. Up until that point, the movement doesn't feel great. But the first thing you get is that dash, and then the very second power is a wall jump. And the wall jump makes it so that you can scale any flat wall straight up on the you don't have to have walls adjacent to each other. You can just go straight up a wall. And once you have those two powers, it really makes the movement feel quick and responsive enough to feel like a like complete style game. So there is an initial time investment, but when we're talking about the difference between, like, say, Final Fantasy XIV, which you say it's 100 hours to get to the good content, and you talk about a game like Hollow Knight, which is really, it's more like 2 to 3 hours to get to get those two powers. It's I don't know. There's like apples to oranges in terms of time investment, and the game is still good. The game is still fun. There's still some interesting things you can do with movement and fighting before you get those powers. But once you get those powers, it just opens up. It opens up completely, and the game is so good. It is so good. They've made the kind of game where they've tried to keep everything kind of in-game logical and consistent with the world, and it feel like there's a lot of stuff in the game that doesn't feel very video gamey. So I'll give you an example. When you want to look at your map, you have to hold the left bumper button, and your character on screen opens a map and can walk back and forth while the map is open, but time does not stop. So if you are in a dangerous situation, you can't really pull out your map and look at it because you're going to get attacked while you're looking at the map, right? Whereas every other Metroidvania game or 2D side-scrolling platformer adventure game, the map is usually just like off in the corner of the screen, right? Like always there. So there are those kind of concessions all over the game that are far more, they make it more immersive of a game, but sometimes they are slight nuisances. So like that mapping system, the mapping system in the game is what I would consider kind of detrimental to the game, because as you are going through the game, once you reach a new area, if you have not found the map creator yet, there's a bug who you have to find in each area, and he has a preliminary map of the area that you have to buy from him with money, and then your map starts kind of auto charting.
It's like in Metroid almost. Super Metroid, that you pick up the map stations.
Except in Super Metroid, the game auto charts as you're going through the area, even if you haven't discovered the map yet.
That's true.
In this game, until you purchase that preliminary map, there is no auto charting. So if you don't find the map maker in each new area that you go to, you don't have a reference map.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, and it is annoying. It's very annoying, and it is probably one of my least favorite things about the game. It's one of the things, and I mean, by the end of playing that game, it ended up being like a 20-ish hour game for me. At the end of that game, I was used to it. I was playing it, I didn't have a problem with it by the end, but it really, like, it was kind of a drag. Like every time you got to a new area, you're like, oh, this area is really cool. the first thing I have to do is find the map creator. That's and buy a map. That's the very first thing I have to do, because otherwise I'm not going to have any idea where to go or where areas that I haven't explored yet are. Right.
Yeah, I
So,
can relate to that.
but there are all of these interesting optional systems to engage with in that game, and that is super cool. It's just there's there's an arena that you can go fight in for rewards that just has these waves of enemies that they have a couple of different things on. And you never even have to go there and engage in it, but it's cool that it's there. They've got all of these different badges that you equip, that you have a certain number of points that you can use to equip, and they really change. They are almost like building a different character. They change the way your character works. And there's 40 of them, and that's super interesting. There's a lot of optional bosses to try that are super difficult. A lot of the optional bosses are really, really crazy difficult. So those are really cool. There's this this dream world that you can go to for certain. You can basically read people's minds with this ethereal blade that you get later in the game. And literally everything, there's only one part of that that's not optional, but everything else to deal with that particular system is optional in the game. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you don't even have to engage with if you don't want to. But really fleshes out this world. I mean, the world is super interesting. And just like Dark Souls, the world is there and something horrible has happened, and it is never explicitly stated what happens to the world. All you do is glean this lore from stuff throughout the course of the game as you play it. I still don't know exactly what happened, but you don't need to, right? It's a world building exercise that makes it's like an interesting, oh my gosh, this is a cool thing that happened here. Yeah. And you put that together in your head, and it's all of that stuff is super interesting and really neat. It's really, really neat. And it's really well done. And they already announced that they've got a sequel coming out. So that's going to come out. I think it's either this year or early next year. So that's really cool. But it was awesome. It was an awesome game.
What's weird to me is it came out around the time of Shovel Knight, and I always associate the two in my mind. I always associate them, even though they have nothing to do with each other.
No, and Shovel Knight is Mega Man, right? Whereas this is Symphony of the Night. Shovel Knight's a different homage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shovel Knight was great.
But they really took that formula and they made it great. They made the gameplay feel even more fun and rewarding. There's just so much execution that you have to do to play the game. It's really good.
That's awesome. Are there different difficulty levels, or is it just kind of
there's difficulty. There's two things you can do. You can play it on normal mode, which is you gain money every time you kill something, and if you die, your spirit is left in an area, which is a Dark Souls thing. Your spirit is left in the area that you die, and you have to go get it and kill your spirit to get your money back. And if you don't, you lose all your money.
Wow.
So, and that's, like I said, that's a Dark Souls. That is the Dark Souls thing.
They do something similar to that in Shovel Knight, though, actually. Random side note.
Sure. But then there's also an Iron Bug mode or something like that you unlock after you beat the game once. And that's one life. You're done. So you can play the game that way too.
I hate those. I hate those so much.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's certainly not for everybody, and you definitely don't have to play the game that way, but that mode does exist as a harder mode. But I said, the real the difficult, we'll say difficulty levels, right? The difficulty levels in that game are all the optional bosses and the true ending, because of course there's 4 endings to the game, and there's a true ending to the game that you can get as well. So
yes.
Yeah, there's ways to engage with the game that make it harder and cooler. So, that was one of 30 games that I have downloaded right now on my Xbox One. So I finished that up, and then I started Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden, which is a game that's on Game Pass, and it is
sounds made up.
It's XCOM, which is a really well-regarded strategy tactics game.
Yeah, you've talked about that on the show.
Heard of it. I have. I've played both 1 and 2 of XCOM. I love XCOM. I love XCOM a lot. Road to Eden, Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is XCOM that plays slightly differently is a little slower and laggier. Like it's not as like snappy, but it tells a story. Whereas XCOM doesn't really tell a story. It's more of XCOM's almost like a civilization game actually with tactics instead of just civilization building. It's like civilization building with a much more interesting like battle system, we'll say, right? That's what XCOM is. Because there's a base building aspect of that game that is less complicated than civilization, but then there is a combat portion of the game that is much more interesting than combat and civilization.
It's like a StarCraft.
No.
It's like a Warcraft 2.
No. Because combat happens on like separate missions and like
a
separate
Warlords
story.
2.
None of that. It's literally like none of those things. Anyway, Road to Eden is much like those games, except it tells an actual narrative, whereas XCOM really doesn't. And it's got like a stealth component where you're like walking around maps and you engage with the enemy on your own terms, kind of stealthily, and you can use silent weapons to like pick off people first before you really engage with the tactical combat. So you try to pick off as many people in the area as possible, and then you jump in to do like the big firefight. And it's a intellectual exercise. Like I said, it's a tactics game, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So that's
what is the name of this? Fairy Tale Land
Mutant Year Zero: Road to Eden.
All right, that's a dumb name.
Yeah, so it's based on a tabletop role-playing setting. And it's cute. It's got a lot of cute, funny moments. You know, you are a mutant warthog, and your characters are a mutant warthog and a mutant duck. It's a post-apocalyptic world, maybe even post-apocalyptic world where all of humanity is dead. There was a virus that came and basically wiped out humanity, and when that happened, nations launched nukes against each other, et cetera, et cetera. So you are part of this like civilization that's trying to rebuild everything. And there's Legend of Eden, which is this place that there's things actually growing, and like it's a place where civilization could really be restored again. And you're trying to find it and get there. And so it's happened after humanity is gone. And so as your mutants are like moving through the wasteland, or the zone, I think is what it's called. As they're moving through it, they're finding things like TVs and schools. And there are these cute like hypotheses as to what those places are. So like they'll get to a school and they'll say, this is where the creators would train their younglings how to kill and how to, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like cute and funnily written. And I'm enjoying it. It's neat.
And you play as Bebop and Howard the Duck.
You kind of do. You kind of play as Bebop and Howard the Duck.
Okay. Do you unlock Rocksteady? Is that an unlock?
I haven't found him yet, but there are mutants. There are plenty of mutants that you find and unlock.
But you can unlock Beatrix.
You can save her. You can save her in this version of the game.
And General Leo and Beatrix are both.
You can. Yeah, I like that we're bringing it back to Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the difficulty curve is not good. There's too many jumps in difficulty, which is something I don't like. I really don't like when difficulty spikes. I like a much more gradual slope in difficulty levels. And that's something XCOM does super well. So I'm kind of missing that. Like I just got to a new area and basically, enemies had 15 health in the last area I was in, and suddenly they have 25, which is what? It's like close to double. And it really changes how you have to like approach situations. And I kind of don't know how I'm going to continue at this point. Like I haven't figured it out yet. So I've already had to do some reading as I've gotten to some of those difficulty spikes and say, hey, like I've done all of the, optional side stuff up to this point, and I'm still like way underpowered now that I got to this new area. What do I do? Like, how do I approach this now? Because I don't understand how I'm supposed to complete this area.
Yeah.
So that I have not been enjoying, but the story, it's a cool tactics game. It's neat.
Now, were these books that you were reading? Or
Yes, they were all books.
okay,
All books.
that's cool. Books are
Haven't played
good.
any video games at
That's
all.
good. All right.
Anyway, I think Game Pass is awesome. I really
Yeah.
do. And they add new games. They add new games usually twice a month, anywhere from 2 to 4 games. So they're always adding stuff. And then when, like I said, once you download it, as long as you're subscribing, you still have access to them. The other cool thing is that um it's so I love my PC, and my PC can play anything, right? For the most part, it's starting to become a little long in the tooth. Some games are not running at high settings anymore in order to play efficiently, but there's still a little bit of fiddling that you have to do with PC games. It's way better than it used to be 15 years ago, but you still have to fiddle a little bit with settings and things like that to make everything kind of smooth. And I haven't played on consoles in a long time. Like I said, it's been before well, since I've really engaged with a console, it's probably been like a year. And I forgot how nice it is just to launch something and have it be pre-optimized for the console, not have to mess with any settings, not have to make sure it's running correctly. Like how it runs when you launch the game is just the best it's going to run because it's been optimized for that system. Even if it is a little laggy, even if there are more longer load times, like I don't have to take it upon myself to try to mess with all that stuff. And I forgot how nice that is.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of nice.
I mean, when you're only playing one game like Final Fantasy XIV, once your settings are optimized, you're never gonna have to do that again. But if you're playing multiple games, like I had to I had to mess with settings for like Dragon Quest XI multiple times. And sometimes it would like error when I launched that game, and I'd have to go in and change settings again and figure out like what happened with my PC as to why it reverted settings and stuff like that. And it's annoying, and it's a
Yeah.
thing that and it's because most of the time game developers are still developing for consoles first because that's where the larger part of the market is. So they're still developing for consoles first when you're talking about some of these like bigger titles, and they don't they it's easier. It's just a lot easier to do it on the console, and I forgot about how nice it is.
Yeah, I got like not soured, but like so Borderlands 2 on PlayStation or no, Borderlands 2 on PlayStation 3 was like abysmally slow. Like the frame rate, it was like 10 frames a second or something. It was
Sure.
like it's bad. And it's just a constant scale. Like it was impossible to play. I even offline, like just with Rush and John coming over, like it just didn't work. So after that, I'm just like, why would I ever buy a game that's available for a console and PC and not get it on PC? So
Yeah, and that's just they must not have optimized it well, and that's a thing. I mean, that's a thing that happens.
it was horribly optimized. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back and play it. You know, I'm really surprised to hear all that feedback about Game Pass because like you mentioned it in our text conversation, and I pulled up the list, and I was like, there's not a single game on here I remotely have any interest in playing. It was like all racing games and FIFA. And
Yeah, there's way more. There's like way more on there, I think, than when you looked at it or something, because there's plenty of non-racing games and non-sports games on there.
all right, yeah. I
Plenty.
mean, I knew Hollow Knight was on there, which is cool, obviously. So that's kind of compelling. But surprised to hear that you're doing that.
So I think part of it too is that I don't have a lot of compulsion to play the newest, latest, greatest games that come out. Just because there's so many video games, and I don't have a ton of time.
Right.
So like the thing about Game Pass is if you are the type of person that needs to play, the new Fallout game when it comes out, if you're the type of person that needs to play the new, I don't know, Borderlands when it comes out, like those aren't the games that are hitting Game Pass. Games generally after they've been out for like 6 to 12 months, those are the games that are showing up there. But I can wait. I'm cool waiting because I've got all these other games that I want to play. But if you're the type of person that needs the newest, latest, greatest thing, it might not be the best value for you because none of those games are going to show up there.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way as you. But I guess for me, I'm keeping my PS4. The games that I really want to play are exclusive for it. So Horizon Zero Dawn, I would like to check out at some point, and I really want to play Persona 5, just
Sure.
because I don't know, it's supposed to be really good. And then they put Joker and Smash Brothers, so it's like, okay, cool. Now, whatever. So I'm gonna hang on to my PS4 for now. I don't know of any Xbox exclusives that might compel me to flip over to that side, I guess.
Yeah. So my buddy and I are probably going to play through Halo. I've never played Halo, any of them.
Hmm.
So all of the Halo games are on Game Pass. So I think we'll probably start those and see if I like them, because I think that's a pretty big gap in my gaming knowledge, right? Like it's a pretty important series. So I
Yeah.
want to check it out.
I would say if and when I ever move out of this apartment where I've been for 4 years, and I have a setup where I have like a game room that's like isolated from the rest of my place, then I could get back into first person shooters, because right now it's not really an option.
Sure.
It's not a thing that that I have any desire to expose my wife to, nor does she particularly want to watch me murder things a lot.
Sure.
Though I mean, I was all about Call of Duty and Halo in my early to mid 20s. So that is a thing I would like to get back into. In fact, I was furious at myself because I'm a PlayStation Plus subscriber. I forgot to turn off auto renew subscription, so I just renewed in January. Whatever. I got
like a year.
Yeah, I got the PlayStation Plus subscription just to play Dissidia online, because Dissidia NT, it was my Final Fantasy fighting game. I played 220 hours of it on PSP. The new game not as good, so that sucks. So I got it, and then I was like, I was starting getting these free games. There was a month where they had Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and The Witness were the PlayStation Plus games. The Witness being the puzzle game from the guy that made Braid that you lauded.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, missed that month like an idiot. Someone in our friend group even texted. They were like, "Oh yeah, you can get like Call of Duty Modern Warfare." Yeah, okay, cool. So I just like missed those free titles, which I would have really enjoyed. And my wife was out of town for a couple of weeks, so I could have like Call of Duty out, and I didn't. But I will say, in terms of first person shooters, I did actually. This is worth noting for our audience, because John and I have talked about how obsessed we are with Risk of Rain. I started playing Risk of Rain 2 with some friends over the last few months. You haven't checked it out yet, have you?
I haven't.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Risk of Rain, roguelike platformer, just so fun. Like John and I have talked about it a ton. We played it so much.
We played it a lot.
Great indie title. It was both of our game of the year and whatever year we reviewed it. But they made Risk of Rain 2. It's like the exact same game, but it's a first person shooter now, which, at first the instinct is always like, oh, it's not going to be as good. But Metroid did it. Metroid Prime was phenomenal, right? So they did it, and it's really fun. It's really, really fun. The controls are tight. It's just Risk of Rain 3D. And it's in open access beta right now, but they have dedicated servers. The big problem with the original Risk of Rain was you basically had to do
connecting was peer to peer.
Connecting
and it was annoying.
It was rough. And then it came out for PlayStation 4, and I actually downloaded it. But like no one was playing it because it's a tiny indie title. So like there's no community. So you still had to get your friends. And if you're already connecting P2P with your friends anyway, like it's like, okay, the servers just take out like one step, but you still need to have your friends. So it's stupid. And plus none of my friends got it on PS4. So, stupid on me. But no, Risk of Rain 2 is awesome. So check out the open access beta if you want. But I played it a bunch with John and Will online, and yeah, you will enjoy it, John. Once it's like more out or whatever, or you want to get into it, like I will definitely jump on and play with you. And that's the thing that I definitely carved out time for outside of Final Fantasy XIV to play.
Yeah.
So
quick
plug for that. I better put that in the show notes. Very important.
So yeah, like I said, I've been playing like a ton of games, and there are plenty that I could talk about, but it's more just having fun with Game Pass and kind of exploring that and seeing new games added. And like I just downloaded Symphony of the Night, which I'll be playing in a couple of months, probably around Halloween. Play through that again, because that was one of the games with gold right now, so you get that for free.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a cool service, and it's really good for me.
I got Symphony of the Night for free on PS3 because it came with Castlevania Lords of Shadow.
Yeah, I can believe that. You probably can find that. You can probably find it free in a lot of different places, to be honest. But it's nice to have it right there where I know that I've got it. So,
or you could just watch me beat it on our YouTube channel, the Game Life Balance US.
Oh, that's
YouTube
right.
channel.
I don't even need a VHS player anymore.
Yeah, I uploaded my VHS videotape that I made in high school of me playing Symphony of the Night. No commentary. It's just a straight game.
Was there ever a copyright strike against that for like the music or anything? Like,
No, Konami just monetized it, so they automatically get the money because you can hear the music in it.
well, all 3 million people that have watched that video, then that's a shame that we're not getting any cut of that.
Yeah.
It's got like one view. It's you, isn't it?
I
That
just
one
watch
view
it
is you. Yeah,
on loop while I'm playing Final
sure.
Fantasy
Yeah, I got you.
14.
So anyway, I think we should do this again sometime.
I would be down
We
with
could
that.
reconvene maybe in 6 months.
If I streamline the production process and I just don't really edit, then there you go. Look, the quality of this show is just gonna maybe marginally slightly go down just because I don't have time to make it really great, but like it'll
What
be
if
80% as good as it was.
what if you release this episode in 1 minute chunks? Like every week another minute of the episode. I feel like that could really stretch it out. We could really get a lot of content out of this one.
Great content, by the way.
I know, right? On a release schedule. Listen, I come up with the best ideas.
They're pretty good. Yeah. I don't know. I'll add that one to the hopper. I'll add that to the idea hopper. We have a hopper of ideas that we keep.
That's a good Stranger Things 3 reference. Or
Was it?
Stranger Things reference. It was, yeah.
Okay.
Because
Cool.
one of the main characters is named Hopper. Casey and I started watching Silicon Valley, which is an HBO show, comedy.
Yeah, the comedy, right? I heard it's hilarious.
I can't believe how good it is because we're generally not like comedy people. Are you and Casey generally like comedy people when you watch stuff together?
No.
Yeah, and we aren't either. Like we're just I don't.
Well, Arrested Development.
So that show ruined me. Like I can't watch funny shows anymore unless they're well done.
Yeah.
Because like if they're not well done, if they're not as clever as Arrested Development, I find them boring. Like I'm not the kind of person that gets a lot of enjoyment out of watching, Big Bang Theory. But yes, like specifically sitcoms are a no-go completely anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing. It is so funny. And Casey, who it's not like my wife is a healthcare lawyer. It's not like she is a techie person at all. And the show is, I think the way you can tell it's actually a very, very good show is the show is about Silicon Valley and about the creation of apps. And it's like there's a lot of like tech jargon in there, but you don't have to understand any of it to think that show is funny and good. So yeah, I haven't binged a show in a while, but we started watching that like 2 weeks ago and we're through three seasons of that show.
Wow.
Which we don't watch shows like that anymore. So it's, been really enjoying that a lot.
That is crazy.
I know, it's super fun.
If you recall last year in all of 2018, we watched every episode of Star Trek, the original series.
Yeah. A comedy, right. That's a comedy show.
Very, very comedy. And I wrote a couple blog posts about it on codygoff.com. Well, once we got done with that, the natural progression is you got to watch Next Generation because that's what we grew up on, right?
Yep.
And then I played Star Trek Club in second grade or recess and third grade.
And so you guys did start from season 1?
So we did. Well, it's like we both enjoyed the camp of the original series, and I was gonna skip season 1, and then our friend Brad texted. He's like, "Dude, if you and Casey enjoyed season 1, the original series, you have to watch season 1."
Yeah, because there's some dumb camp in season 1.
There's
that episode where they go to the sex planet and Wesley falls in the bushes. That show is so. The first season of that show is just so dumb.
It was pretty rough. We are in season 2 now, and I am just looking forward to not having to watch Catherine Pulaski anymore.
I didn't mind her that bad. I mean, I don't love Beverly either.
Okay, so I love Beverly. In season 1, I was like, dude, she's like one of the best characters. She's like her act. I don't know. She has a very good presence on screen, I think.
Yeah, I see. I don't love Beverly. I think I might just be spoiled by the Doctor from Voyager. That like it's hard but I find Beverly just kind of boring overall.
Yeah. Well, every time we tell people that we're on Next Generation, the immediate response is, "Oh man, well, then you can do Deep Space Nine, which is the best Star Trek." Everyone has said that. Do you agree?
I've never watched it.
every single person. And like you're a Voyager guy. You watched all of Voyager, right?
I did. I'm one of the weird people that really, really liked Voyager a lot.
I liked Voyager a lot too. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
I really, really liked Voyager.
Well, I'll have to let you know how Deep Space Nine goes, but based on our current click of watching shows, we'll get to Deep Space Nine in 2021, I think.
Okay, that seems.
Which,
I mean, I think one series, start to finish, like seasons 1 through 7, because they're all 7 seasons long. One series a year feels reasonable.
it's 7 seasons. The original was 2.5. 3, really.
Yeah, and they were still made at the time where there's only 12 minutes of commercials per episode rather than like 20, which is what current shows have.
Mhm.
So the episodes are 48 minutes long. That's a time commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's so.
And there's also 24 episodes per season or whatever because it was made before the writer's strike.
That's also true. The one of the thing I've been really into lately outside of video games and media is, have you ever had a michelada?
Is that a drink?
Yes.
Is it actually a drink?
Yes.
I haven't, but it sounds like a drink.
You like Bloody Marys, right?
I love Bloody Marys.
All right. So a michelada is basically a Bloody Mary, but instead of vodka, it's beer. It is a Mexican.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, like tomato beer has been around forever. Beer and tomato juice. Yeah.
So yeah, but there, I believe its origin is Mexico. I'm not sure, but there's a Hispanic neighborhood in Chicago, and based out of that neighborhood is a company called Big Miche, and it is like a Michelada mix, and it's like you pour like a third in a glass, and then you dump in like any light beer, like a Mick Ultra or like a Modelo or a Corona or whatever. Dude, unbelievable. It tastes like you're like eating a whole Mexican meal, but it's light and but it's got this spice. Dude, it's like the best thing. If you go to a Mexican restaurant and you can order a michelada, like do it. And if you like really hate it, then maybe you got a bad one. But like, dude, I'm so into it. I have become I'm so into it. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, Casey and I have been doing a ketogenic diet for the past like 3.5, 4 months now. And I'm not going to get into it. Maybe at the start of next episode, we can talk about it because we're almost done with the amount of time we're going to be on it because we're going on vacation at the end of the month and that's when we're stopping. But it is so restrictive and stupid, and I'm so ready to be done with it because there's all of these foods and stuff that I can't have, and it's awful. Like, I can't have beer. I haven't been able to have beer for months. I miss beer so much.
Don't get too wrecked in Vegas.
Oh, I'll probably get wrecked in Vegas.
Okay.
Like I said, we're gonna be off that's the whole point. Is like we were doing it to get to before Vegas to get up to Vegas.
Yeah,
so
to get to Vegas, sure.
It's worked. It's been good in terms of like results, but I'm just so overeating. There's just so many things you can't eat. Did you know that like everything that we eat in America has carbohydrates in it?
Yeah.
All of them. All of the carbohydrates are everywhere. They're everywhere.
So it turns out
you're a diabetic. You actually have to pay attention to those
it turns out I have to actually know how many carbs are. And it makes me so angry that like everywhere you go, they list the calorie count. And like, I don't care about calories. I want the carb count of everything you serve.
I feel like there's literally zero way that a type 1 diabetic could do the ketogenic diet because it keeps carbohydrates to like 30 grams and lower for most people. Somewhere between like 20 and 30 grams a day.
Why couldn't I do that?
Wouldn't that kill you? Wouldn't you be dead?
No, I would just take less insulin.
Like that much less insulin?
If I do like a really low carb diet, like back in the day when I used to live alone and I would basically eat
do like a protein diet.
It was pretty much lean ground turkey meat or chicken breast and veggies like every day. Yeah, I never had to dose at a mealtime, and I lowered my like daily dose. Yeah, there's like a 24-hour long acting insulin that a lot of type 1 diabetics take that basically just limits the it kind of evens out how much sugar is released in your body throughout the day so that it doesn't spike as much. And if you dose correctly, then yeah, it doesn't go really erratic. Like if you don't take it and I eat something, then it'll like shoot really high, and then if I take like a short-term dose, it'll like drop really fast, and that's like not good. So but yeah, once you figure out that like average, I would take it, and then like if I ate just meat and veggies, it would just like bump a little bit, and then you go back down a couple hours later, and like
Sure.
totally fine.
Oh, so maybe this is the right diet for you.
It was
It's
actually
not.
really great.
It's not. Don't be on this diet. It's terrible. You don't get to eat anything. It's not fun.
Oh, awesome.
Like I said,
do
I can talk about it another time.
Well, let's try
This episode's already going long. So.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be able to record before Gen Con, so maybe we'll record after. You're not making it to Gen Con this year, which we will miss you. That sucks.
That's right, because it is the first time that we will have gone on vacation alone in like 2 years.
You and your wife, you mean?
Yeah.
Not you and me.
No,
go
God
on vacations
no.
alone.
God no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't subject myself to that.
Right. No, that'd be rough. So,
cool.
Well,
yeah, Gen Con is coming up, which because normally we would, if we were trying to keep a bi-weekly schedule, we would try to record in 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, we're both going to be on vacation.
Yeah, I'll be gone. So after vacation, we'll do a vacation wrap up, and then maybe talk about some more of the amazing games you've been playing. Maybe I will have played more Civ, or maybe I'll be able to like review the full Shadowbringers storyline. I don't really know.
Actually, we probably could record in 2 weekends because that's the weekend before we're both gone. So,
I'm out of town that weekend.
Well, what are you doing? Why are you always so busy? See, it's not me. It's you.
Yes.
We're having the "it's not me, it's you" conversation, which is the opposite of the "it's not you, it's me" conversation.
We could do next week. We could just go crazy with it.
Oh my gosh, I'm okay. That's fine. Let's do it.
We'll figure something out. So, but you will hear from us again soon, because like, why not? I'm into this. It's fun, and it turns out we're actually part of a podcast network. Did you know that?
I kind of forgot until you just reminded me. Remind me more. Tell me more.
So we're on the Gonna Geek Podcast Network, which is a network of really good, well-produced, consistently released shows. I don't know why we're still on the network. I think we just haven't been kicked off because I actually have no idea. I have no idea why we're still allowed to be
That's
a part
a good point.
Of this incredible network of very, like, legitimately very good podcasts that are entertaining and, again, consistently released. So, but here we are. Thankfully, we've been grandfathered in and remain part of the Gonna Geek Network, which now has a Discord server, which I am on pretty regularly. And there's actually a whole chat channel for Game Life Balance. I don't think John's on there ever, but I'm on there sometimes.
I'm on there.
Yeah.
I just don't.
We're not big Discord users.
I don't talk on there. Yeah, I don't understand the platform that much. I need to like sit down and read about really what it is and what it does.
It's just a chat program.
You know, but you can reduce it to that. But then when you get in there, it's like I can't just chat with anybody, right? Like you have to. I don't understand.
It's chat rooms. Chat room.
I'm an old man.
Okay.
Well, I'm an old man.
It's a chat room with channels.
What is an email?
If you're on Discord, look in the show notes of today's episode and you can join the Gonna Geek Discord and talk to other hosts and learn about other shows, especially if you're like into podcasting and you have interest in podcasting. There's a lot of like tips and advice you can get for doing shows and stuff. So that's pretty cool. But some other shows that are on the Gonna Geek Podcast Network is All Things Good and Nerdy, which is actually a show that I guest starred on. It was like one of the first podcasts I ever appeared on, All Things Good and Nerdy. We go way back. That's how I got introduced to the Gonna Geek Network. Awesome show. And on ATGN 360, that's not the number of degrees, that's the number of episodes. On ATGN 360, we just talk about it. So I'm looking at the promo sheet. All right. I gotta back up. Are you looking at this, John?
I am.
Okay. So there's an Excel spreadsheet, a shared Excel spreadsheet with a list of all the shows on the Gonna Geek Network, their most recent episode title, and the copy for the promo for that episode to be like, okay, well, here's a description of like what the episode's about that you should go listen to. So in the All Things Good and Nerdy episode promo copy, it says, quote, "I'm terribly sorry. I overwrote your promo copy due to a copy and paste fail. And then instead of hitting undo, I panicked and hit back, like as in the back button on my browser. And when I came back, I couldn't hit undo. So like, I basically ruined your copy. I'm very, very sorry. Toodles. Rob from Game Life Balance Australia." Rob, what are you doing? Fortunately, and so then I go, what is going on? So then I open up. Then there's in the next cell there's a link to the episode. So despite Rob's failure, I go and click the link to the episode because I'm sure I can just read from this episode what the description is.
For sure.
It links me to an episode from February 2017, which is not their most recent episode. This is more than 100 episodes old. I don't know why this is in the promo sheet. So I guess go listen to All Things Go to Nerdy. It's a good show, like actually, but I don't know what it's about this week. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a Marvel Comic Universe podcast, episode 278, Runaways Tsunami. Same comment in the promo copy that Rob overwrote it. And you can also find the Starling Tribune, a CW Network Arrow television show fan podcast. And on Starling Tribune number 237, Arrow Lost Canary, Rob ruined the copy. So, oh my God. All right, there's one show with copy, and it is Game Life Balance Australia.
Are you saying Rob did not accidentally overwrite their own copy?
Oddly, it's like Rob sabotaged the entire Gonna Geek network just to promote episode 85, H-Lur Chicken. This week, the lads discuss the Shantae franchise, Magic the Gathering, car registration, Thailand's worrying obsession with Nazi imagery, divisive snack foods, the answer to all social problems in America, spoilers, it's more guns, the battery capacity of a lightsaber, cultural misappropriation, Rob's burgeoning Switch lust, and AC's fancy new monitor.
What's controversial about snack? Like what's a controversial snack food? Tell me.
I haven't listened to I'm
no. I'm asking you what you believe a controversial snack food is.
Candy corn.
Is that a snack food?
Every year on WGN Radio, Brian and I get in a fight on air about candy corn.
Because it's awful. Because it's awful. Because it tastes like you're eating a candle.
It's
candle
horrendous.
with sugar.
He loved it. Brian looks forward to candy corn every year.
I've got people at my work that do too, and I never understand it ever. It's disgusting.
I don't know what's wrong with any of these people. It's not for me. Candy corn is not for me.
What's controversial about it? You and I both agree, and we're literally the only opinions that matter.
I know. Well, there are dumb people in the world. There always will be.
Sure.
With wrong opinions. I don't know. I mean, I just dropped my phone. It's fine. Look, I love Game Life Balance Australia. I'm not going to lie. I'm so far behind on all of my podcasts because I've been working from home a lot and podcasts are on my commute. Now, right. I also listen to podcasts when I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV, but since I can't concentrate on both things very well, like if I'm leveling or doing something repetitive, I tend to listen to podcasts that I don't care about as much, like where if I tune out, it doesn't really matter.
I do the same thing. Same thing.
What have you been listening to?
I mean, I listen to
the Jordan B. Peterson podcast.
My standard podcast rotation, things like Stuff You Should Know and Freakonomics, lore.
I hate that show.
I know you do. I know you do. That's why I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to bristle your hackle. I didn't want to bristle your hackles. Is that
hackle? You also listen to the Jordan B. Peterson podcast a lot.
I do. Wash your dicks.
You want to know a fun fact? The podcast awards are open for nominations. 2019 podcast awards.
I'm not going to nominate Jordan B. Peterson's podcast.
Oh, it gets better. Curiosity Daily, the show I do last year, won Best Science and Medicine podcast. If you want to go vote for it at podcastawards.com, love it. But so we are finalists, or we're trying to become finalists in two categories, basically educational and science and medicine. Again, we were finalists in both of those last year. So last year we won science and medicine, really cool. And I always look at who else is nominated and who's our competition. And last year we won one category, didn't win another. That's cool. Okay, so this year, one of the other finalists, one of the other options to select in the category of best educational podcast for 2019 is the Jordan B. Peterson podcast.
So you are one of them? And the Jordan B. Peterson podcast is one of them?
So Curiosity Daily, a science-based podcast from a popular science website where you learn something new in 10 minutes a day, that won Best Science podcast last year, is now a finalist in the educational category against the Jordan B. Peterson podcast.
I'm so sorry.
So I'm not really happy about that because he's wildly popular and will very likely, I think, win.
He sounds like Kermit the Frog.
He, you know, like, and I don't even really dislike him. Like I'm not like a hater at all. Like at all, like really. But I think maybe next year the podcast awards categories should perhaps be revised.
It's a podcast. Isn't podcasting so weird? Podcasting, there's zero regulation on any of it. You're not FCC regulated. So it's such a weird, it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
It's kind of a bad, dumb industry.
I don't know why we do it. Because it's fun. Because it's fun.
It is very. And apparently if you go to gunandgeek.com/Discord, that'll bring you right to the Discord server or give you links or something. So I just realized that. Didn't know that.
I didn't either. Awesome.
You know what's not up for a podcast award is this show or our sister show starring a guy who just deletes promos from other shows. Rob,
that's true.
I'm ashamed of you. Really. But no, Game of Balance Australia releases consistently every 2 weeks. They are very funny and really great. And I feel really bad because like you remember how Sony had to release a Spider-Man movie every so often to keep the Spider-Man license?
Yes.
That's us. In order to keep calling ourselves Game Life Balance US, we have to release an episode once every 9 months. So that's the only reason we're doing this. Really.
It's true. AC, you know how AC asked for your address to send you a very personalized gift?
Yeah.
Did he ask for my address to send me a very personalized gift? Because he did.
Maybe.
He sent me an NES lunchbox, which he hollowed out an NES and made a lunchbox out of it with a handle.
Oh my God.
And he made me a whiskey stone. That's a die, it's beautiful.
He made it?
So he has a picture. He sent me a picture of his brother like etching it, but I'll show it next week or the next time that we record. I'll get it and make sure I show it to you. But it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. He's a good dude.
Irony aside, he is an extraordinarily good human being.
Yes,
like
he is. He's a good dude.
I had a dream like several months back that I was visiting him. Like actually like went to Australia and like got picked up somewhere by Rob and was like going to AC's to like hang out.
I mean, now that I think it's far more interesting for us to go to Australia than it probably is for them to come to the United States. Because we live in a dystopian hellscape. But one of these times we should consider, since we know people there.
Oh, I've been considering it.
Maybe we go to Australia together.
I mean, if it weren't for the fact that there is literally nowhere else on the planet that is further away to fly to, I don't think. Well, maybe Madagascar. I'm looking at my giant world map on my wall, and I'm kind of trying to chart this out. It's a toss-up. But yeah, if it wasn't literally as far away as you could possibly go, then it would be much higher on the list of considerations. But like, no, I think I'd make it sometime. The problem is it's so close to New Zealand. And then it's like,
why is that a problem? That doesn't seem like it should be a problem. Why is that a problem?
It's a problem because it's competition.
New Zealand is just go to both. You don't go. It's not like you'd go to Australia multiple times in your life, like most likely. So just take it as like a 2-week thing and do both.
Look, I can either hang out with.
They might have some really bad things to say about New Zealand. I don't know if they like each other very much. I think there was that Kiwi war,
right?
And that was like I think it took its toll on the relationship between those two countries.
It did. It's like, do I want to fly across the world to visit an actual hobbit in New Zealand or someone who just kind of looks like a hobbit sometimes when he doesn't shave in Australia? I'm talking about Rob. Hobbits delete promos. So go listen to Game Life Balance Australia, GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com. This has been a 95-minute commercial for that show. What are we at? This is an epic episode, but you know what?
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
We needed one.
Still an average of 10 minutes a month. So this is fun. We'll be back sometime soon. And hey, listen, in the interim, even if it takes John and I like a month and a half to release a new episode, I will still be editing and posting that episode, the interview with the Cornell University professor about music and video games, composing music and sound design in video games. I know that's also what the last interview was about, but this is a different, like kind of research-based, like psychology interview about it. So should be good times.
I'm sure it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, it should be interesting enough. Anyway, yeah, that was fun. Do we do something else to wrap up or no?
No,
Oh,
we did. I mean, I think we're supposed to say.
Or don't you read that?
Yeah, I think
you memorized it though, actually, right?
Sure. Yeah, I remember exactly what that read is. I think we're supposed to say thank you. And really, thank you for coming back to us and this many months later. But thank you for listening to the Game Life Balance US podcast, the American edition of the Game Life Balance podcast. If you had fun, then please tell one friend about this podcast. And that's all we ask. You can learn more about Game Life Balance, including our sister show in Australia that Cody just talked about for 97 minutes, at gamelifebalance.us.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can check us out. You can check out Game Life Balance and lots of other geeky shows on the Gonna Geek network that we just talked about at gonnageek.com. Your clapper's not working. The lights stayed on.
Congratulations, Jonathan. You have closed this episode of Game Life Balance with the promo copy, and now we will enter the era of more podcasting.
What